Good morning. I'm Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri, and we're here today to announce Crime Stoppers' Cold Case Homicide Billboard campaign in conjunction with our partners at Clear Channel Outdoor Media. Crime Stoppers of Pinellas County was formed in 2001 to provide people a manner in which they can report crime and remain anonymous. Crime Stoppers operates on the principle that people have information that can solve a crime, and they just need an outlet to which they can provide that information. People who provide the information to Crime Stoppers are eligible for an award of up to $3,000. Through this partnership with Clear Channel Outdoor, Crime Stoppers is hoping that our Cold Case Billboard campaign will generate tips that will give much needed closure to the families of those loved ones who are victims of these unsolved crimes. Clear Channel Outdoor has generously donated and produced 7 billboards to help law enforcement profile some of their unsolved homicides and missing persons cases. Excuse me. Clear Channel Outdoors General Manager Dan Donovant and Senior Account Executive Kelly Pruitt are here with us today. We certainly appreciate Dan and Kelly being here and Clear Channel Outdoors support. Clear Channel has worked hard to shed new light on these cases, going so far as to place the billboards as close as possible to the area where the crimes occurred. The hope is the presence of these large reminders of these tragic incidents will jog the memories of people who may have information. And it's that information that is essential if we have the hope of ever being able to bring the closure for these families. I want to kind of go through and profile a couple of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office cases that will be subjects of these billboards, and then turn it over to Chief Dan Slaughter from the Clearwater Police Department and Assistant Chief Jim Prevotera from the St. Petersburg Police Department, who will provide information to you about the cases from their agencies that are subject to the billboards as well. The first Pinellas County Sheriff's Office case that we want to talk about is a homicide victim, Gary Nordhook, and he was found deceased on June 28th of 1996. Gary, at the time of his death, is a white male who was 38 years old. He was found as a victim of a homicide at 8780 126th Avenue North. That location is a warehouse with a room that was converted to an efficiency apartment, and he was found by the owner of the warehouse. Gary lived in Manatee County, and he would stay at this apartment when tending to his businesses here in Pinellas County. One of the businesses that Gary owned was the Whitney Road Storage off of US 19. Unfortunately, Gary was found shot to death. His car, which at that time was a 1992 Infiniti Q45, was stolen from the scene and later found in a tow lot in Pinellas Park. The car had been towed from an address on 126th Avenue North. Gary was last seen alive by friends while having dinner on June 25th of 1996 at about 10 o'clock p.m. over in Brandon at a restaurant near the Brandon Town Center. The next case that we want to talk about and that we want to profile, the victim is Lynette Campbell. And Lynette was a victim of a homicide. She went missing on June 10th of 1996. And unfortunately, her body was found on June 15th of 1996. Lynette lived with her mother and at the time of her death, her 10-year-old daughter in Tarpon Springs. She was 35 years old at the time of her death. She was last seen alive by her mom on May 31st at about 11 o'clock p.m. as she was leaving her home to visit a new boyfriend, a person only known as Mark. She was reported to have been seen by witnesses in the early morning hours of June 1st, 1996 at the Bridge Lounge, which is off of Alternate 19 in Tarpon Springs. This person, who is her, quote, new boyfriend, has never been identified. She was reported missing by her mom on June 10th of 96. Her vehicle at the time was a cream-colored 1997 Oldsmobile Royale, and that was abandoned on June 7th and later recovered on June 10th in a wooded area off of Anclote Road in the North Tarpon Springs area. Unfortunately, her body was recovered on June 15th along the Anclote River. The manner of her death was determined to be a homicide, and it was caused by homicidal violence. So those are the two cases that will be the subject of the billboards that are Pinellas County Sheriff's Office cases. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Slaughter from Clearwater, who will profile the Clearwater cases, and then Chief Prevotera. And then We'll hear from Crime Stoppers, and then we're happy to take any questions that you all have. Chief Slaughter.
Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you, Clear Channel and Crime Stoppers of Pinellas County for this opportunity to profile these cases. Clearwater's been very diligent and committed to trying to solve many of our closed cases. But the two I'd like to profile for you today involve a case that occurred in 1992, just a few months prior to me actually being hired with the Clearwater Police Department. So it's very well ingrained in my memory that this case occurred and the impact that it had on the family and the commitment that our agency has to solve it. And that involves the case involving Melanie Warren, which is off to my right here. On Sunday, May 24th, 1992, at 11:26 p.m., Melanie Warren was sitting alone on a front porch at a residence, a friend's house at 1012 Jones Street in Clearwater. She was shot and killed by a drive-by shooting. She was only 15 years old at the time of the murder, and this is a girl who was an honor roll student at Tarpon Springs High School and was also a very, very talented basketball player. A wonderful girl. Not in any way, shape, or form any negative or problematic behavior. She was just a wonderful kid. And this occurred shortly before midnight, and the vehicle that drove by that was described as shooting several rounds at the residence, with the one unfortunately striking Melanie, was a vehicle described as a Lincoln Continental four-door. It was white in color with a sky blue vinyl top, possibly a 78 to 79 year, and it was described in good condition with hubcaps that had spokes in them, dark tinted windows, and white wall tires with the thin white stripe. Our exclusive efforts to identify and locate this vehicle have been unsuccessful to this current date. Several of the theories of the shooting have been developed. We continue to investigate it. Detective Mike Hasty is here today, and he has been very diligent in continuing to work this case, as in Melanie's mother, Mrs. Blue, is here. Thank you for being here today. And we will continue our efforts to try to solve this case, and we look forward to this forum, hopefully generating some new leads to bring that to successful conclusion. The other case I'd like to bring to your attention, also to my right, is the Zachary Michael Cole Bernhardt case. I'm familiar with this case because I was a primary detective early on in this investigation. Zachary, on September 11, 2000, was living with his mother, Leah Hackett, in an apartment complex in the 2600 block of Drew Street. She called 911 at 4:47 a.m. in the morning to report Zachary missing. She advised investigators that he was asleep in his room when she left to go for a walk and a swim in the middle of the night, and when she returned, he was missing from her residence. An extensive search provided no evidence as to Zachary's whereabouts. He was last seen wearing an unknown color pair of boxer shorts. He has a scar on the bridge of his nose, under his chin, and in the upper right side of his lip. Zachary is described as a very intelligent, cheerful child who excelled in school. Detectives have conducted hundreds of interviews, and based on countless leads, in an attempt to identify a suspect in this case or to identify what happened to Zachary, and we have been unsuccessful to this date. There is an age progression photograph available as well, and the family was unable to attend today due to a transport concern, and they live pretty far out of the area, but they remain connected with our detectives who continue to work this case. And I thank you again for any information that can help us lead these cases to a successful conclusion. Thank you. And with that, I'll introduce Assistant Chief Jim Privatera.
Good morning. On behalf of Chief Holloway, I want to also thank Clear Channel Outdoor for your support and thank Crime Stoppers for their continuing and ongoing support that they give the men and women of the St. Petersburg Police Department. There's three cases that we will profile in these billboards, and the first one is the tragic case in the death of Militia Gamble, who was a 15-year-old girl who resided in St. Petersburg at the time of her death on January 9th of 2009. Militia was found early that morning in a vacant lot near the intersection of Preston Avenue South and 8th Street. She had been dead for a relatively short period of time. She was fully clothed, and she was the victim of a gunshot wound. As I said earlier, she was only 15 years old, and we're joined this morning by her parents, Coretta Gilmore and Ferran Gilmore. And I thank you for coming up here and for your continued support of the police department as we investigate your daughter's death. There's also several other members of the family here, as well as Militia's grandmother. We believe that someone out there in that neighborhood has information that will lead to the arrest of the person who's responsible for this young woman's death. We're hoping, and we're very hopeful that in this case and all three cases, that these billboards will inspire someone to step forward and be the voice of these victims and become a voice for their families in helping to bring them justice. The second case is the case of Tracy Polito. On August 18th, 2013, 42-year-old Tracy Lee Polito was found deceased in her bedroom at the Fountain Court Apartments at 600 40th Street North in the city of St. Petersburg. The last time anyone saw her alive was on Saturday, August 17th, 2013, between the hours of 3 and 6 p.m. Tracy left her son at a friend's apartment at that time, and she called the police when Tracy failed to return to pick her son up. There were signs of a violent struggle in Tracy's home, and we believe that the killer, the persons responsible for this, may have been known to her and may also reside in that area. And again, someone out there knows who this individual is, and someone has information that they can provide. The last case that is profiled is a case that received a lot of media attention on January 28th of 2014, when the victims, Paula Whithouse and James Rapp, were found violently murdered in a house at 2840 17th Avenue North in St. Petersburg. There were no signs of forced entry. There are no witnesses, and we have talked to a number of persons of interest in this case, and we continue to pursue this case actively each and every day. It's our hope, once again, that the billboard that will be located nearby the scene of this crime will inspire someone in that neighborhood, someone who knows something about this homicide, to come forward and give us the information we need to find out who murdered these two individuals. Just again, want to thank the Sheriff's Office for hosting us and thank Crime Stoppers for their support.
Okay, now we'll ask Deb Martino, who works for the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office and runs the Crime Stoppers program, to come up and offer a few remarks. Deb.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of Crime Stoppers of Pinellas County, we wish to thank Clear Channel Outdoor for their generous donation of these billboards and the production of these billboards, as well as going so far as to place these as close to the scene of the crime. We want to remind the public that by calling Crime Stoppers regarding these horrible crimes, you remain anonymous from the beginning to the end, even through the payment of the reward. You're just a number. You're assigned a tip number, and that's what identifies you. So if you have information, if you know something, say something. You will remain anonymous. We get the information directly to law enforcement, and they investigate it. And if your tip leads to an arrest, you can be eligible for up to a $3,000 reward. We appreciate everyone being here today. Our hope is that we are able to finally give your family some closure and bring some people to justice. So thank you.